like clock. I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop. No popcorn, I pop pistols, reaming my body.
Boruto episode 182 review. Alright guys, this episode right here was a lot better than I thought it was, and I'm super excited for it. Now the first thing that I do want to talk about is of course the first thing that we did see of the episode, which is absolutely insane. Of course Mugino gets completely blindsided by one of the puppets and it looks like he's in extremely bad shape. The wound on his chest doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be fatal, mainly because Konohamaru and Mugino got out of the situation that they were in, even though I would have loved to actually see exactly how Konohamaru got out of it, but I'm not going to necessarily totally complain about that scene right there. We got the point. The point is basically that Mugino was hurt extremely bad, and of course Konohamaru and Mugino are in a very bad position. I'm pretty sure they're not completely out of the woods as of yet, and for the people who did read the Boruto manga, we know exactly what the situation is going to be in the future. Now the best part of the episode in my opinion had to be the ending scene. Is when we got to see Kashin Koji. Now, of course, one of the things that I was definitely looking forward to about this episode was the interactions between Ao and Boruto. When Ao and Boruto in the Boruto manga actually had that interaction, it was made extremely impactful, and of course it built the character of Ao, which basically made the betrayal of Ao in the future that much more surprising. Just for this episode right here, it basically portrayed exactly how Ao was meant to be portrayed. For regular Naruto fans, we understand who Ao is, and of course understand that Ao is a very legendary shinobi, and of course for Boruto, he doesn't know this guy from like a can of paint, but just in a snap of a finger, Ao could have literally killed Boruto. That's how elite these old ninjas are, and Boruto just can't necessarily fathom that as of yet. I mean, we've seen in this episode, Ao basically said that he hasn't necessarily seen combat in 16 years, and in a snap of a finger, Ao could have literally killed Boruto. That right there is just absolutely insane. And another big thing about that scene has to be Boruto's character development in regards to this scientific technology. We understand, of course, Boruto started off absolutely loving the scientific technology, and now he completely hates it. In this episode right here, he starts to see exactly what it could possibly do to help the less fortunate. But when Boruto got off of the train and we got to see Kashin Koji pop up, and we seen Kashin Koji and Ao's interactions, it was absolutely insane. First things first, what we understand is that it seems like Ao was not necessarily too familiar with Kashin Koji. He understood that he was an enterer just by his voice, but when he did first hear Kashin Koji, he was talking about how he expected to see Victor actually approach him. That's mainly because that right there is definitely Victor's district. Victor basically said he should be the one to actually retrieve the vessel, but of course that wasn't the situation, mainly because it seemed like Victor got completely destroyed by Kashin Koji. But one thing that really surprised me, Ao has been running with the lie for episodes now that he was just visiting Katasuki to see, or to basically get a checkup on the scientific technology to get his wrist a little bit tightened. It just took me completely off guard when he actually did admit his true intentions to Kashin Koji. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I've seen the Boruto manga, so I know exactly what's gonna happen, but it was still surprising. Like, damn, Ao is a savage. And it wasn't just me. When Kashin Koji heard Ao talk about exactly why he went to the Hidden Leaf Village, Kashin Koji laughed a little bit too. He was like, yo, this guy is a savage. You could just tell that the Boruto directors, they're having so much fun with the OST of the Kado organization. They didn't play when Kashin Koji first appeared on screen. They didn't play when Kashin Koji first started talking to Ao, but they started to play it as soon as Ao said that he was about to kill Katasuki if he remembered anything about the Genjutsu. But getting off of the interaction with Kashin Koji and Ao, another big thing that we did see in this episode that we didn't necessarily get to see in the Boruto manga was, of course, Jigen talking amongst themselves with Amado. Now, I talked about this in my spoiler review. I did talk about how there's most likely going to be some other scenes in the Boruto anime that we don't necessarily, or we didn't necessarily get in the Boruto manga, and it seemed like this right here is a prime one. Now, one of the things that Jigen was actually talking about was the fact that there is a traitor amongst the Kado organization. For the Boruto manga readers, we already understand who that person is. For the sake of this video right here, and for the sake of this review, I'm not necessarily going to talk about that, but regardless, it's very interesting seeing as how they're starting to build up the inner struggles within the Kado organization, something that we hadn't necessarily seen or even known about in the Boruto manga until extremely recently, like for example like a couple months ago in the Boruto manga. At this particular point in the Boruto anime, I think they made it very clear Jigen is going to be the unquestioned leader, and Jigen's most trusted advisor is going to be Amado. And I believe that right there is most likely because Amado is not necessarily a fighter. He can't necessarily challenge Jigen in any way. 9 times out of 10, everybody else in the Kado organization are most likely not going to be able to rival Jigen in any way, but more so Amado, mainly because he just doesn't fight, period. But one thing that I definitely do hope is that scenes like this continue on in the future. For example, in the next chapter or the next episode that we do expect to be adapted from the Boruto manga, there isn't much Kyle organization dealings that's going on in that episode either. It would pretty much be my dream if every single episode like that, where we don't necessarily, or we didn't necessarily get to see the Kyle organization in the Boruto manga chapter, if every time that they do adapt into the Boruto anime, we do see something with the Kyle organization. They do give us bits and pieces of some sort of information. Now in this episode right here, another big information that we did kind of see is the fact that Jigen actually did bring up the karma seal. Now of course, before we even knew what it was called, a lot of people were calling it the curse mark. It's pretty much this mark that Boruto got from Momoshiki, and it seems like Jigen has the same mark on his chin as well. There's definitely a big possibility in the upcoming episodes that we're probably going to get to see more mentions of the karma seal, especially with the approaching reality that Kawaki is coming to the anime very soon. And not only that, one of the more funny things that I did see in this chapter is the fact that Mitsuki actually brought up the karma seal in front of Naruto. Now this right here is very different from the Boruto manga. In the Boruto manga, in chapter 17 specifically, Naruto did actually talk about it, and of course Boruto seemed a little bit shy, mainly because he didn't necessarily want Naruto to actually figure out exactly what it was. At the particular time, we had absolutely no idea why Boruto was trying to keep that a secret, and of course we were just thinking that it was the regular shonen nonsense. But in the Boruto anime, Naruto still didn't acknowledge it. I just find it a tad bit weird that they took this scene right here specifically out. The reason why I'm not completely freaking out is the fact that the anime has shown tendencies already to actually include a lot more things, specifically revolving the Kado organization and the karma seal in the anime that we didn't get to see in the Boruto manga, that I pretty much trust them to actually introduce something like this in the upcoming episodes of the Boruto anime. So I would not be surprised if in the next episode we get to see a cutaway scene to Naruto talking to Sasuke and Shikamaru about the karma seal and what they expect and what they don't know about the karma seal. But as always, I want to know what you guys think about this episode in the comment section below. As I said, me personally, I think that this episode was definitely a very good episode, definitely better than what I thought it was. In regards to the manga chapters actually being adapted into the Boruto anime, this right here isn't necessarily one that's too insane. But let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.